Good day everyone. Today we are going to present a study on seagrasses entitled Ecological Productivity and Biomass Density Relationship of Seagrass Species in Leyte Gulf, Philippines.
To give you an overview of our discussion, we would start off with the introduction, followed by the research objectives, then the methods, and then results and discussion. Next is conclusion, and finally, the recommendations.
Seagrasses are the only flowering plant that can thrive in shallow waters, clumped together, forming seagrass beds. Perhaps one of the most prominent environmental benefits of seagrass beds is their role as primary producers in shallow waters. It provides an immeasurable amount of benefits to coastal dwellers. Seagrasses render great ecological importance and ecosystem functions which sustain a rich diversity of faunal species. They are vital coastal resource that serves as homes and breeding grounds for marine organisms, and are valuable indicators for detecting changes in the coastal environment. As a potential food source for marine organisms, seagrasses play a critical role in maintaining the ecological balance in the community. Seagrasses also play an important role in the carbon and nutrient cycle in coastal habitats. Although the seagrass population only accounts for less than 0.2% of the world's oceans, their ability to sequester carbon is twice more significant than that of the terrestrial forests. In fact, they are responsible for 40% of the annual carbon deposition by coastal plants. Seagrasses store carbon in the form of biomass in their body. The Philippines have the second largest number of seagrass taxa, housing 16 unique seagrass species, about 10 of which can be found in Leyte Gulf. They offer a diverse service to local communities, not only as a food but also a source of income. Despite their immense ecological and socioeconomic value, only minimal attention has been given to studying seagrasses. The mapping of seagrasses in the country is still uncertain due to limited data, lack of single repository, and ad hoc studies. Lack of knowledge and information on seagrasses leads to the overexploitation of the resource. In fact, there is a significant decline in seagrass habitats reported worldwide. This is where proper knowledge and adequate information about seagrasses plays a vital role in the development of management and conservation strategies. This study aimed to examine the ecological productivity of the seagrass communities in Leyte Gulf, Eastern Visayas, Philippines. Specifically, this study aimed to assess the ecosystem provisioning services provided by the seagrass species based on the canopy height and abundance of epiphyte. Second, examine the correlation of the canopy height of seagrass species and abundance of epiphyte using multiple linear regression and correlation analyses. Third, evaluate the biomass density relation of the seagrass species. And lastly, to provide recommendations for long-term management and conservation plans of seagrass communities in Leyte Gulf.
We will now move on to the methods. For the study area, the collection of data was conducted in Leyte Gulf. 10 municipalities were identified as study sites: Giwan, Salcedo, Mercedes, Kinapundan, Giporlos, Balangiga, Lawaan, Basay, Marabot, and Aboyog. At least 2 and at most 3 sampling stations for each study site. For the quantitative analysis, the species abundance and species richness were recorded and summarized in tables for every 5 m² in all study sites. In addition, the shoot density, canopy height, percent composition of all seagrass species comprising the community were identified. The canopy height of seagrass species in each quadrat was measured in centimeters using a measuring tape. There were 3 different types of analysis performed in the study. First is the regression analysis. The analysis was utilized to examine the correlation of the canopy height of host seagrass species and the abundance of epiphytes. The correlations of the said variables were categorized by the multiple R value, according to strength, in terms of weak, moderate, strong, or perfect positive relationships. The second analysis used is the biomass density relationship, where relative covering of species, relative frequency of species, relative diversity of species, important value index, and biomass estimation was calculated using the formula shown here. The last analysis used was the Seagrass condition assessment. The researchers utilized the brown blanket scale for seagrass ecosystems. As seen in Table 1, density values greater than 175 and percent cover greater than 75 indicate very high and very good conditions, respectively. In comparison, density values less than 25 and indicate very rare conditions, and percent cover less than 5 means very small conditions.
And now, we will be presenting the results and discussion with the main emphasis on provisioning services provided by seagrass species, regression analysis between canopy height and abundance of epiphyte, biomass density relationship, and lastly, seagrass condition assessment. Table 2 presents the data on epiphyte abundance and canopy height of seagrass species found in Leyte Gulf. The epiphyte cover of seagrass species was highly variable between the determined sampling sites in Leyte Gulf, with an overall total average of 38.6, with only 9 species having data record of epiphytes. On the other hand, the average canopy height of seagrass species is also provided. Of the seagrass species, E. acoroides had the highest average canopy height of 56.3. Coastal protection and sediment stabilization by seagrass are generally attributed to seagrass canopy morphology. Concerning ecosystem functioning, the canopy of seagrasses serves as a barrier that armors the sediment from waves that cause erosion. In fact, even with reduced canopy height, the seagrass retains a significant coastal protection value. Finding the relationship between the canopy height and the abundance of epiphyte of seagrass species was done by utilizing a statistical test. In this case, regression analysis was used to determine the correlation between canopy height and epiphyte abundance. Figure 1 presents the regression statistics conducted for correlation of canopy height and epiphyte abundance of seagrass species found in Leyte Gulf. The majority of the seagrass species have positive coefficients, indicating that they have a positive linear association. This means that as the canopy height increases, so does the amount of epiphytes connected to the seagrass species. The strength of the correlations between the variables were classified using the multiple R value as weak, with a value of zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.4, moderate, a value of zero point 0.4 to zero point 0.6, strong, a value of zero point 0.6 to zero point 0.8, or perfect positive relationship with a value of 1. C. circulata, E. acoroides, H. ovalis, and S. isoetifolium produce substantial positive associations among the seagrass species. T. hemprichi species demonstrated a moderately positive relationship, while C. rotundata, H. pinifolia, and H. uninervis have yielded a weak positive relationship. Among the seagrass species involved, only H. minor or H. ovata had no correlation between its canopy height and epiphyte abundance, denoted by a zero coefficient, as shown by the findings of the regression analysis that was conducted. According to DZL 2018, this could be due to the small number of samples used, with only 5 observations recorded, resulting in a higher margin of error and less definitive conclusions. After determining the link between canopy height and abundance of epiphytes of seagrass species, the biomass density relationship was also taken into account. The biomass density relation of seagrasses is widely utilized as an ecological indicator of resource availability, for example, amount of carbon, and the condition of the seagrass beds. In this context, biomass refers to the total mass of seagrasses, while density is the total number of seagrass individuals per unit area. To supplement, the Important Value Index, or IVI, is also used to assess the condition of the seagrass beds. The IVI, according to Dewey and Sukandar, illustrates the ecological role and importance of a species in a community. As shown in the table provided, T. himpechi has the highest value with an IVI of 81.47, followed by H. uninervis and C. rotundata. This indicates the critical role of T. himpechi in maintaining the seagrass community in Leyte Gulf, and thus its existence is vital in the ecological function of the seagrass bed. C. I. curea, on the other hand, garnered the lowest important value index.
In Table 5, it shows the biomass estimation of seagrass species found in Leyte Gulf. The biomass was estimated using the covering area value of each species and their corresponding carbon stock value that was obtained using data from previous studies. The results show that E. acorides garnered the highest estimated biomass due to its carbon stock value, which is the highest among the 8 seagrass species. On the other hand, each vallis has the lowest estimated biomass. In total, the seagrass community biomass in Leyte Gulf amounts to 3.3 times 10 to the 7th power grams per hectare.
In the results for the seagrass condition assessment, all sites have a density that falls in the very high condition category, which indicates that all locations exhibit densities above 175, while in the percent coverage, only Base and Salcedo have a good condition of percent coverage, while the 8 remaining sites are in medium condition, which indicates that they have a 25 to 50% coverage. The density and coverage measurements using the brown blanket scale shows that the seagrass in Leyte Gulf has considerably very high densities and good to medium coverages.
To sum up what have been stated so far, the following are the findings of this study. First, the condition of seagrasses in Leyte Gulf sites were assessed and was found out that municipalities of Pasay and Salcedo were in relatively good conditions, while the rest of the municipalities were categorized as medium conditions. On the other hand, in terms of density, each of the municipality was in very high condition. Next, among the 13 seagrass species found in Leyte Gulf sites, 4 species of seagrass have no recorded epiphytes, namely Halogylpinifolia, Rupia species, Posidonia angustifolia, and Cymodocea ocorea. Based on the available data, Enhalus acoroides yielded the highest average canopy height. This species is considered to have high tolerance and resilience in response to increased temperature brought about by climate change. Furthermore, the canopy morphology of this seagrass species provides protection for sediments against waves that could cause erosion. Then, the relationship between canopy height and epiphyte abundance was known to have either positive or no correlation at all. In the case of Leyte Gulf, majority of the seagrass species have yielded a positive relationship that indicated an increase in abundance of epiphyte as canopy height increased. This correlation was further categorized according to strength. Findings show that C. cerulata, E. acoroides, H. ovalis, and S. isoetifolium yielded strong positive relationships. The species of Thalassia hemprichi had a moderate positive relationship, while Cimodocea rotundata, Halojule pinifolia, Halojule uninervis, and Halophila minor ovata have yielded a weak positive relationship. Furthermore, only H. minor ovata had no correlation between its canopy height and epiphyte abundance, denoted by its zero coefficient. This was attributed to its very low number of samples with only 5 recorded observations, which yielded less conclusive results. Lastly, the relationship between biomass and density of seagrasses varied among species. Enhalus acoroides and Halojule uninervis have inverse relationship, that is, high biomass and low density, while Thalassia hemprichi had allometric relationship which was manifested with its high density and high biomass. However, the case is different for Cymodocea rotundata and Syringodium isoetifolium and Halophila ovalis, which showed no trend at all. Thus, density is independent from the biomass of seagrass species. Now, based on the conclusion of this study, the following recommendations were provided to further its scope for future research. Furthermore, well-developed conservation plans in seagrass communities are highly recommended. First, examine below-ground tissue biomass. Below-ground tissues are known to assess seagrass quality, resilience, and ecological services. However, they are rarely studied. Thus, it is recommended to assess further the seagrass quality of the 28 sites that encompass Leyte Gulf to accurately identify the level of resilience and ecological services that seagrass communities in these sites provide. Second, estimate meadow size of seagrasses. Estimates of the meadow size of seagrasses provide an initial set of data crucial in understanding ecosystem trajectories over time, whether in natural conditions or in response to long-term environmental changes. However, due to the logistical challenges of mapping seagrass meadows, estimates of meadow size are rarely given as well. In line with this, it is recommended that future research studies include measuring the meadow size of seagrasses to generate projections on what would happen in seagrass communities at a relatively long time. Third, extensive seagrass data. There are significant challenges in conducting seagrass-related studies due to limited data, lack of a single repository, and ad hoc studies. Hence, seagrass mapping in Leyte Gulf must be monitored annually to provide up-to-date data to summarize all the seagrass data in the Philippines into a single repository. For management plans on seagrass communities, the following are highly suggested to be implemented. First, LGU-based conservation plans. Coastal plans must be prepared by officials to carry out their resource management responsibilities in the region's coastal marine area. Further, they should be responsible for land and associated natural and physical use of resources, extraction of materials, potential damage to seagrass beds, such as man-made activities that lead to degradation of seagrass species. 2. Maintaining and improving estuarine and coastal water quality. Water quality is among the requirements of these plants to attain survival and achieve proper growth. therefore minimizing erosion and contaminant runoff by reducing inputs of sediment and nutrients that leads to eutrophication is critical for achieving a sustained improvement in estuarine and coastal water quality. Third, management of activities in nearshore areas. Dredging and other boating activities must be carefully managed to lessen direct physical impacts on seagrass habitat. Lowering anchors from large ships must also be observed since dropping anchors on beds of seagrasses has such a negative impact as this severs or lessens the growth rate of seagrasses. Fourth, mass education to promote planting of seagrasses. Since there is a high rate of seagrass loss and degradation, planting more seagrasses is the most effective way to counter extinction and or continued decline in seagrass populations. However, seagrasses are undervalued due to lack of relevant advocacies, projects, and education that aim to promote planting of seagrasses in local communities.